talking before we hit the record button on. So you just recently got your IFBB card. Is that what you would call it, or do you call it a pro card, or?
Either IFBB Pro card, yeah. Just got that in October. Dream finally came true after I don't know how many years. Let's see, I've done 4 national shows before that.
4 national shows. So
was it 3? Yeah, 3.
So when you say nationals, is it? I mean, you're competing with everybody in the nation.
Yeah, you're going against different people from different states, but you have to qualify to get to nationals. I believe it's top 3 or top 2 at a state qualifier or national qualifier that you'll do in your state somewhere. And then when you qualify, those certain individuals either decide they want to go to nationals or, just bragging rights about, oh, I'm nationally qualified. Some people will put that up on their social media or something, just kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I started in 2014, and that was my first show. And I learned so much about myself, just like everybody else. When you compete, every time you step off stage, you learn a little bit more. A lot of people's mindset, though, right when you step off the stage, isn't to jump back into the next show because you're so depleted. And,
you're so dead that you're just like, the last thing you want to do is start prepping again for another show.
Yeah, because it takes away so much from your life, like when you're with your family, relationships, work, everything, because it's like another full-time job almost. And if you don't put in that much time and effort, then you probably won't get as good as results. A lot of people will want to compete, start working out maybe for a year or 2 and feel good about themselves, which is good.
Like they start seeing gains and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah,
and
like they're on a high almost.
And then sometimes it takes away the fun of competing and the thought of what it was supposed to be like, because I think people see the pictures of everybody on stage or somebody they knew, and then when they get up there, they're like, man, this took a lot of work. I don't know if I want to do this again. But when you start feeling a little bit different, and you get to eat what you want again, and then you look back at that picture and you're like, I remember how much I suffered for that. And there's part of it, I think, that becomes addicting in certain individuals. Majority of them actually want to step back on stage again.
Yeah.
But if I can say anything for anyone, hire a coach. I'm not saying that so you hire me. I'm just saying because it will save you so much time, headache, effort. I mean, invest the money. You are going to be spending quite a bit of money in the sport, but I mean, just like anything, the more you invest into anything, the more you get out of it. And the coach is the biggest part. Like people talk about, supplements or gear, steroids. Do you take steroids? And it's not always about that. It's about what your diet is, your consistency, how often you're able to spend in the gym. Because there are times when you go to the gym and you're not going to have that motivation. Like, it's going to be gone. Because when you start dropping body fat and you have no sleep, I mean, it just really affects, that part that you look forward to in the day. Usually, if it's your therapy, to go to the gym and get that part of your day out. It's almost like you dread to go at some points because you're waking up at 4:30 and you got to be to the gym by 5 so you can get to work, get the kids ready, whatever it is that you have going on in your life. It's almost like you have to set that aside and still have realize that life goes on and functions whether you compete or not. So that's why a lot of people in relationships, things like that, sometimes you'll see them suffer or they won't make it. I've had relationships that didn't make it through prep, and I'm very difficult to be around. I know a lot of people are.
That's a lot though, man. Like to prep for a show, I can only imagine. I mean, I don't have any experience doing it, but I want to back you up just a little bit. So how did you get started? Like, when did it click in your mind? Like, I want to be a pro bodybuilder. Like, I want to try doing this for a living.
Oh man, for a living, I was the time that I knew I wanted to do it was when I was really little, running around playing action figures, and I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Back in Commando and all these other movies that he was out in.
Well, he was the king back in the day, man, with bodybuilding. Like, Pumping Iron is like one of the most epic bodybuilding movies.
The godfathers of the sport, and growing up through that era and being able to see him and what he looked like and just the physique, it was like, wow,
This is crazy.
And now that I'm older, I find out in his roles that the directors, they didn't want him to get pumped up before his photos, or for his
Like when he's acting and shooting a film.
So I'm surprised, because I thought, you'd want this guy to just be all vascular and huge. And now that I know that, I realize, oh yeah, he wasn't really full in those movies that he was in. But yeah, looking back at that, I think that's where it started, when I started idolizing bodybuilding, and then I started really appreciating the physique, the symmetry, and really, like, when we got into, like, when I wrestled.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, how much is your wrestling background? I mean, we both grew up wrestling, and I feel like wrestling, that discipline and learning, because you kind of get humbled in the sport of wrestling, because at times you're on your game, but then you come across a kid that's like, whoa, like he kicks your ass, and you're like, how did that happen, right?
Yeah.
And just the grind of, we had early morning practices. I don't know how you guys did it, but we would go practice at 5:30 in the morning so we can get in practice and then go to school. And I hated that, man. Like, waking up as a teenager so early, and it's freezing cold, because we were wrestling pretty much in the winter months. And I remember being at like Thanksgiving dinner, and like I needed to cut some weight, and I'm just sitting there at the table. I'm just like, this sucks. Or like Christmas, everybody's like just chowing down on candy and stocking stuff, and I'm like, dude, this sucks, bro.
Yeah.
But I feel like that kind of set, I didn't realize it then, but I feel like it's totally helped me out in my professional life.
Okay.
Would you say the same?
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say how wrestling, helps build that structure. I mean, because you learn how to be disciplined in an early age. Waking up, you don't want to go work out, you don't want to go to practice, but just having that and building that structure in your life almost helps you when you get older. But also, excuse me, a lot of it contributed to what I do, because there's times I'll take my kids out, we'll go out to eat, or family, birthdays, whatever, weddings, they all come up, and you can't just, fly under the radar, because your kids depend on you.
Oh yeah.
So I would do things, and I wouldn't suffer as bad as what other people would tell me. Like, my clients all the time will be suffering, and it's just something that you can't teach somebody. And wrestling taught me that, to be able to suffer, because I always think, well, hey, at least I'm eating. Because I remember there'd be times when I'd go a whole day or two without eating, and then I would cut my water out, and I was like, man, that really sucked. Because I was doing sprints and wrestling at the same time, trying to cut weight. With this, it's different. You can eat 5-6 times a day. It's not what you want to eat.
But you're not eating for pleasure, right?
Yeah, it's just mostly like, okay, every 3 hours is a general rule of thumb for me. But it's just the same thing. You eat like a dog every day.
Do you ever eat like when you're still full?
In the beginning,
or you burn, is your metabolism just like...
Your metabolism's crazy.
So you're like, damn, I'm hungry.
And in the beginning, when you transition into that diet, though, everybody's generally going to be about 4, 5, 6 meals a day. And when you do that, your metabolism revs up. In the beginning, though, you're just like, that's a lot of food. Because you look at 6 or 8 ounces, whatever it is, for the portion of protein on the side of veggies and
whatever
carbs, fats, things like that. So it looks like it's a lot, and in the beginning, it's like, man, this is miserable. And I just tell people, if you can hang through, I won't put them at that right away. I'll go off of what they have, what they're eating, what they're doing every day, and I'll slowly make changes to transition and get them ready into that. But at the end of it, it's funny, because when they finally get to the 5 or 6 meals a day, they're like, I'm starving.
Really?
Yeah. And it just makes a huge difference in how you feel too. Now, when you're cutting, though, and you get that many meals in a day, it's almost like your brain starts to suffer a little bit. You get a little foggy. The prep starts to actually set in, and things become a little bit more difficult. It makes life harder, but it's not always like that. Off seasons are different for everybody. Like right now, I think the thing that people get misconstrued is when I stepped off stage, I had a live interview with I think it was NPC or somebody, that they interviewed me, and they asked me, so what are you going to do now? And I mean, I was still in shock. So I mean, the first thing I wanted to do was just get something to eat, like that I couldn't have during prep, and a drink of water because I had been thirsty, and those were the first things that came to mind. But I also mentioned in that video, I remember they said, so what are you going to do now? And I said, I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to step away for a bit. But when I say that, I think people, this is where they get it misunderstood, is that when I step away or when people step away, it's not that you're giving up. You're actually continuing to build and evolve and get better. That's where the biggest results are made, the off season. Because when you're depleting, it's hard to build.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to say, oh, yeah, I have another show next weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, the judges were actually trying to get me to fly out right after that to Chicago. And they're like, you need to go to Chicago. You need to go to Chicago. You'll do really well there at the pro show. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm good. They're like, why not? Why won't you go? And my coach and everybody's standing there and the judges. And I said, well, for one, I just, I haven't been around my family very much as I want to. Financially, like, I don't have a ton of sponsors and endorsements.
Yeah.
I guess I should be doing a better job, maybe putting myself out there to do that. But I think every year I just commit myself to one show at least. I don't know if I'll do it here next year, and that's coming soon. I think I just want to definitely focus on other aspects and areas of my life, but at the same time enjoy the gym again, because it really, at the end there, I suffered the most for that show, and it showed because it paid off and I won the overall. So I didn't just win my class, I went on after I won my class, because people that win their classes, they go by height. So it looks like that evolution theory or whatever, or where there's the smaller chimp and then becomes a Neanderthal. It went by height, and I was the short class. There's A, B, C, D, even E.
Yeah.
And every person that wins first place in their class goes on after that and competes against each other. And I went against those guys, so I was the short class, and I beat the taller guys out that took first in their class, so I got the overall.
I watched that video.
Yeah, that was
I watched that overall posing down, that pose down. And dude, I gotta say, like, when you turn, they have, I think you did, like, it was a double bicep, and I'm a moron when it comes to bodybuilding. I mean, I guess I know a little bit, but.
No, you do.
So you did like it's a double bicep.
I think it's a back double bicep, right? Is that the one?
Well, yeah, but then you turn around and they want to see your guys' backs, dude, and it is, like, it popped on video. Like, and whoever's taking the video are like, holy shit, like, look at that back. And I thought the same thing, man, you're talking from a video camera off of a phone, and how, like, you were so much above those guys. And I thought, holy crap, man, that instantly had to get those judges like, whoa. And you were competing against taller guys, like those taller guys. And I was going to ask you this too, while I had you here, is there kind of not an intimidating factor, like you're scared of these guys, but it's more of an intimidating thing, like, are they going to stand out more than me to the judges? Because there were some tall, the one guy was really tall.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, are they going to drown Ryan out?
Oh, I didn't even think I was going to stand a chance, because since I was the shortest class, I went out first and got the awards at the night show.
Mm-hmm.
I got my first place award, and I was so happy. I was about to walk off, and they're like, no, you got to walk back to the other side of the stage again. We're going to have you go back out for the overall. You just have to sit and wait for everyone else to get their award. And I thought, I was already happy.
You're stoked. You're just like, this is what I came here to do.
I was embracing my trophy sitting there. And as I saw each person that won their class one by one come back, I was like, oh my gosh, that guy's huge. And they just kept getting bigger. And the last guy that came back before we went out, he was an NFL player. He was jacked out of his mind. I was like, this guy's huge. But I didn't think I was going to stand a chance. And I didn't want to give up, though, because last year, you could see it in my face, like when I was on stage. I just didn't care to be out there. And
last year?
Yeah, last year I did nationals. I took 4th. I showed up. I didn't half-ass things, but I definitely didn't put everything I had into it. And I knew I could.
You felt that coming into it? You're kind of like...
Yeah,
I don't know if I gave it 100%.
I knew I didn't. And I didn't look as good as I knew as I could have looked.
Yeah.
And it was hard to follow through with it, because I don't like to back out and things like that, even if I didn't show up my best. But this year, I let that kind of haunt me, and I just really pushed it and came through and gave it everything I had. And I knew I couldn't keep doing this, so I wanted to make sure that I did it not just for myself, but for everyone behind me, like my family, friends, and supporters. So, because it's hard to see that when it's almost like you wake up every day, for instance, like in wrestling. The one thing that haunted me was my senior year. I was seeded number one at state, and then I got hurt in the semis. And when I got hurt, oh no, it was before the semis. I got hurt. I had to wrestle my next match, and I couldn't even turn my head. And I lost to some
Your
kid.
Your neck was all jacked up?
Oh yeah, it was bad. And I won that match off my back. But after that next match, I couldn't even move my head. And I lost to somebody that my JV had beat. And it was just so frustrating. Yeah, it was really hard. So I ended up coming through and taking third after that. But still, it haunts you to this day. And
yeah,
I think, there's only so much time we have here in this life and the way that we, in our physical state. So I had to take advantage of that while I can and I'm still healthy. And that's another thing that was like, we can get into a different topic about health. And that actually isn't very healthy when you're on stage. Those people probably, some people probably have a misconception of how, oh, this guy looks good, so he's got to be healthy. But when you're depleting like that, it's shaving years off your life. So.
And it's only a short you couldn't do that. I mean, I'm sure there's bodybuilders that walk around with really low body fat, maybe just like as a maintained thing, and they just like eating clean, and it's, But, I mean, what are you talking on body fat? I mean, you're talking like 2% body fat?
Yeah, and that's another topic.
Because your brain needs that, right? To operate as fuel.
Your organs need the fat, your brain. And a lot of people will go get pinch tests, calipers or whatever, and other tests, but most of them aren't accurate. And so they'll be like, oh, I'm 3 or 4% body fat. But then I look at them and I've been doing it long enough that I'm like, no, that guy's more at like 8 or 10%. And I probably was about 3% maybe. I would say 2%, but I don't know. Like you could see the muscle, just the skin go over the muscle everywhere where there's no fat. And when you pull water, that's when I can really tell. But it's hard just to say that, about yourself, like, oh, I'm 4%, I'm 8%. I can honestly say though, in my off season, I like to stay 15% or less. Not try to get too sloppy, like you said. There's some people that just go gung ho all year and stay clean.
That's intense, man.
Yeah, I mean, and
but those guys, are those guys more? I mean, they probably have a lot of like photo ops and stuff that they're doing, right? Magazine covers and like videos and stuff. So they almost have to.
They do, yeah.
Stay that way.
People pay for that. They invest into those people because of the way they look.
Yeah.
In photo shoots, there's a lot of people that I've competed against and I beat that they look so good. Like they look amazing in pictures. And I thought, well, there's no way I'm gonna beat this guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, they have a ridiculous following. And one of them was a Steel Supplements athlete, and I just thought, there's no way I look better than that guy. And then when I beat them, it's almost like a shock. But the more you do it, the more you realize that people, it's almost about lighting and in the room, also angles, things like that. It can make a huge difference compared to stage lighting. When you're out there on the stage, it almost exposes some of those weak points because it makes you look flat with the lighting.
That lighting is so bright.
Yeah, it is.
Can you even see the judges when you're on stage?
You can see the judges a little bit, but not anyone. I couldn't see anyone in the audience.
Yeah.
I could just hear the area in the section that it was coming from, where people were cheering and stuff. But I could kind of see the judges, and it's important to know where the judges are at because there's the head judge in the center usually. And I will try to, with my posing, make sure that each judge gets to see the shot. So you'll do small rotations and turns. That just takes time.
Give them a different angle, let them see kind of a different perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people will just go out there and pose and don't realize that far judge furthest away from you, maybe you're not giving them the best look in that pose. So knowing where you're at on stage and angles is a big thing too. So, a lot goes into it.
I always thought the judging was so interesting with bodybuilding because to me it seems like it's very subjective. Because like you think like most sports, basketball, football, wrestling, like there's a scoring system and like fans and everybody can see that. But here, it's kind of like boxing in a way, and MMA fighting. Like you have judges, and it's subjective to what they see and what they think, and their experience tells them like, hey, this is what I should score this guy or this girl. But to me, I'm like, damn, what if that judge just, like you said, if they just miss something and they dock you 2 points because you're on the end, they can't see you, and then you get runner-up versus first place.
Yeah.
And you could actually be beating that guy. And also, everybody looks so good. Like to the average guy, to the dad bod, like when we see that, we're like, every one of them, I would never be like, dude, you look like trash. It's like they all look so good. You're lining up Benzes and Rolls Royce and Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and it's like, okay, which one do you want? It's like, well, damn, dude, they're all good. Like, how does that even?
It's gotta be hard.
That's a hard job, right? As a judge, and
I think
even as a competitor, it's not like when we're golfing. Like, if you get a birdie, you get a birdie. You get a par, you get a par. Like, we write it down. Everybody sees it. Everybody witnesses it, and then you just tally up the score.
Well, you haven't golfed with me yet. Sometimes I use that little short.
But imagine it in golf if you were judged on like how well your swing looked.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like, what?
Then the score is different, you know. I think every sport has, like with UFC, I mean, you always see those fights, you're like, how did that happen? And they always say, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. I mean, because you see something different than the judges do, and it's exactly like that with bodybuilding, because in pictures and videos, I promise you this, it does not look the same than when you're there in person. You're more grainy, you're tighter. The pictures don't do justice when they do the videos.
Yeah.
So my conditioning, I think we were all probably about the same, but I think the symmetry, my waist was small. I was able to showcase my package on stage, my whole entire physique, the best, and I stayed tight the whole time. Because I don't always look like that when I'm posing in pictures. Like, so I've had people say stuff like, about me that I don't know, or like, oh, that's just too much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wish I looked like that. I'm just flexing, everything I can, and over time, it becomes like a natural thing. But like you said, for that second that the judges, like for instance, if they're looking at each one of you and you just happen to not be tight at that moment, or breathing in deep and your gut comes out when the judge that looks over you and looks at the guy next to you wasn't doing that can matter. But also I think judges kind of know from all the judges I've talked to, and these are bigger judges, they kind of know who's going to win when you walk out.
Instantly?
Pretty close.
Or they have a pretty good idea.
Yeah, they have a really good idea. But
does personality play into it at all? Like,
it does.
Like your charisma?
It does.
Because I felt like you had more charisma. That's what I felt. And maybe just because I was biased because I know you. And I was just like instantly like rooting for you when watching the video. But you see some guys, I've seen some guys line up and they're just, it's almost like they're ready to pass out. And it's like, dude, he's just not digging it right now. And I think the judges, they're just not attracted to it as much as the guy is just like smiling and just, like jacked, ready to
like they're
pose down.
I no matter what they say about this, the judges, I honestly think it does. Because your energy when you're on stage, you almost have to fake it. You do.
Because you're dead at that point, right?
Yeah, last year I went to this national show, the same one. I just, like I said, my energy wasn't there. I mean, it never is, but you almost have to like pretend when you're up there, like it's like you're trying to sell it.
Absolutely.
And
I get that.
Yeah, when I got off stage, I still was kind of just bummed out, about everything. And I could just tell my dad, he's just this always positive guy. And we went out to eat, and he's like, well, you should be proud of yourself. He's like, you'll do better next time. And I was like, yeah. I was like, how do you think I did? And he goes, well, when you went out there, it's like you sucked the oxygen out of the room. Everybody was just like quiet because you were just like, oh, I don't want to be here. You could just tell. And I hated that. So going back out there this time, I really was exhausted. And at the very, very end, when they had all of us out there for the overall, we did all the poses. They ran through like all the poses twice. And they'll just keep you out there under those hot lights to see who's better conditioned too. Sometimes they'll have you hold the pose, and they'll just say back double bicep. And they'll have you hold it for a while, see who starts shaking and see who starts breathing heavy. Because sometimes you'll hold that stomach in and to pose up big and tight, and one of those guys is eventually
Gonna
going to
get.
start breathing heavy.
So they actually judge you on conditioning too.
Oh yeah, the conditioning's big. I've had some clients, won't say any names, I really think that they would have won the whole show, and they just start breathing too heavy. And one of them actually, it looked like he was going to pass out, and he didn't follow what I asked him to do. And you know, health is a big thing too as well. But I tend to like try to mentally stay strong and keep my clients there too. I'll ask them how they're feeling before the show. I think it's normal to feel like dog shit. Can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
Dog shit. But I think it's good to have that somebody there that's been through it and knows where you're at.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to kill somebody, but at the same time, you want to come and peeled and do your best. There are some people that just want to do it for fun, and that's great. But I like people that are usually wanting to bring the best possible version of themselves and are willing to do what it takes to get there.
Because you have to go, to me, I've always thought about, just from my perspective, I feel like bodybuilding is one of the like ultimate sacrifices that you can do in a sport. And I know every athlete it's a sacrifice to make it to the pro level, such as yourself. But when I think about just dieting in general, how hard that is for the general public, the average person, because we're so used to eating for pleasure instead of eating for fuel. And it's hard to wrap our mind around that. I know I struggle. Like if I want to cut off sugars, dude, I struggle just to do that like one day consistently.
Oh yeah.
Or 2 days. It would be a miracle if I could do that. And it's just because I haven't disciplined my mind to do that. So I know there's some time to do that. I believe in certain little steps to discipline your mind. But I also feel that bodybuilding is a lonely sport. Like these, I think about golf sometimes. I know it sounds weird, but I love golf, and it's just a solo sport. Like it's just you and your coach and maybe an agent or something like that. You got like this tight niche team. But at the end of the day, that golfer, that bodybuilder, he's the one that goes to the gym. The coach isn't there going to the gym, right? I mean, they're not prepping. They're not getting ready for the show. It's the athlete that's there. And like you mentioned earlier when we started, like your family and the time away, like I can imagine it would be hard to tell your kids like, oh, dad has to go to the gym, and they're thinking like that's something fun for dad. You know what I mean? But they don't maybe realize quite yet that that's the job that puts food on the table. Like that takes you where you want to go. And I just feel like it would be such a lonely road almost, because you're out there grinding when nobody's seeing it. Like you're doing some nasty stuff behind the scenes. You know, people see, I remember seeing you at the gym and stuff, you know, and you would just think if you're just an average person just randomly going to the gym twice a week, but you happen to see you there every time, it's like, man, this guy, like I'm just seeing a little 30-minute, hey, he's in the gym, but I'm not seeing like the posing and all the practice that goes into it, and just the mental game. Like, what does it do mentally for you? Like, is it just a grind mentally?
Excuse me. Yeah, a lot of that hit the nail on the head. It is a really lonely sport. I have only met my coach when it comes down to like the show, right then, the deadline, because he'll be at the show.
Yeah.
He lives in Utah, and I hit Shane up. I've had like 4 different coaches, I believe. And
Shane's your coach?
Yeah, Shane Hughley.
Okay.
Does an awesome job at bringing in conditioning and his athletes. And when you see yourself every day, like within an hour or two, when it comes closer to a show, your physique can change just from small things like eating certain things. And, you know, I get the gist of it because I've done it for so long, but I have a good enough relationship with him to where we were able to, you know, come together and he can help me bring in my best package possible. But leading into the show, yeah, it's hard. Like physically, I'm weak. I can't stand up sometimes for very long, which sounds stupid, but I'll get like really lightheaded because of low blood sugar. And, you know, my kids are everything. Like when I do have time with them, and, you know, it's running around chasing them, picking them up and all that, because, you know, they're 4 and 7 and 2. So it's hard at that age to like not be able to interact and do all the fun stuff that's physical.
Yeah, it's not like they can go to the gym with you and just kind of like work out alongside you, you know?
Yeah, and not even that. It's like when I do get that time to play with them, it's almost like I just want to sit down, and that sounds so selfish. But I got to be honest, bodybuilding, I don't care who you are, it is a selfish sport. I think if you realize that, you can realize that it's good to be selfish sometimes to take care of yourself in that aspect. It doesn't mean you're a narcissist.
Yeah.
In some way, we all are.
Absolutely.
But
that's how we survive, in my opinion. I think that's how you stay alive.
Yeah, it is, and it's how we teach our kids to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So going through that part at the end isn't the best. It's hard to think back, and that's why I'll tell people sometimes I'm just gonna enjoy time with my family, meaning that like I want my energy back. Like I was almost like I didn't have a personality.
Mm-hmm.
I would show up to the gym and like you said, I would be there 2-3 times a day towards the end, and I would see people I knew, and I thought, man, I hope they didn't think I was an asshole later on, because
right.
I just am so depleted and so dead that even my vision's blurry. So people will wave at me and I don't know who it is, and I'm just like, who was that? Hi.
Man, talk about just being in a whole different level from a mind standpoint, and that's something that I just geek out on, because it's interesting to me how, like, I look at my life in general and I can't believe how far I've made it in my life. Yeah. But when I analyze it, and the advice that I give to like my clients, and when I'm doing consulting and things like that with clients to help them achieve things in their life, is it's just a series of choices. Like you get to make a choice. And if you just look at your life from where it is now to where it was, look at those choices that you've made, and every one of those will have an outcome. And sometimes you make the wrong choice. You might think that, but at the same time, you learn from that wrong choice, exactly. And it allows you to correct and get yourself back online.
I think everybody makes hiccups in anything, in any profession or career that they chase. I mean, nobody's going to just win all the time. I mean, that's how you be successful, is you
need that competition almost.
Yeah. It's in wrestling, going back to wrestling.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to lose, how to humble yourself and come back. In those bigger tournaments when I was younger, I actually did better after I lost, which was too bad. But I think it's because I didn't start until like end of 8th grade year, and in high school I went against a lot of kids that have been wrestling since they were like little.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the thing that helped me, I think, was that they were probably burnt out, a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And so I was still fresh, and I just, was hungry. But I spent a lot of time that I did. It didn't matter how much time you spend in the room. It doesn't make up for all those years that those kids did it. But at the same time, I was able to put that time in, and it paid off.
Yeah.
I came a lot further than some people would have in 4 years of wrestling. Than, I've seen others though in like 2 years. I'm like, how the heck did that guy win a state title in 2 years in wrestling? I don't know how that's possible, but it happens.
A lot of them just have the knack for it.
Yeah, like a natural, strength and balance. But with anything, I think it's all the time that you put into it, and learning from things that happened. If it doesn't go your way, go back to the drawing board and figure out what happened, mm-hmm. and what you could have done different, and what you did do that you knew that was going to probably hinder whatever it is that you're trying to work towards.
Yeah.
Like the diet. I'm not perfect. I would slip up on the diet. Maybe it helped me, because sometimes you get so.
Do you think? That for me, I think that would probably help you almost keep yourself in the game a little bit.
Yeah, mentally for sure. I think that that's why there's cheat meals and stuff, but sometimes you have those mess ups, and
yeah,
and you're like, okay, I did it. I'm not going to beat myself up over it, because sometimes there's individuals out there, and this is with anything, like where if they mess up once, it's like, oh, I'm no good. Oh, I messed up. Why continue? And they just, they'll just keep going downhill.
Yeah. I
think once you have something like that happen, it's almost like, okay, I feel better now. I'm reset. I'm recharged. Mm-hmm. Time to get back at it. Mm-hmm. And I try to be open with my clients and have them be open with me, because I don't want to tell them, well, it's okay, but at the same time, I don't want them to beat themselves up. I think every individual is different.
Sure.
They work with, so you kind of have to figure out that person and their personality and how they work. But yeah, I think getting too into the diet sometimes it's so repetitive, because when you are cutting, it is pretty much like the same thing every day. It's just black and white, and just it gets old. So when you see people eating like your family during Thanksgiving or Christmas or birthdays, holidays, it just gets hard to be around that and smell the food and watch everybody having a good time while you're just dragging, and then you're warming up your fish.
Yeah. Well, do you ever remember the time when you weren't a bodybuilder? When you're like, dude, I would put down these pancakes right now.
Oh.
Or like,
but
I noticed on your Instagram post, like you're a huge like a shrimp guy.
Yeah.
Like, you dig shrimp and you just like, I mean, you can't just be grinding on that stuff all the time when you're prepping.
It's tough. I mean, I like to keep shrimp in my guys' meal plan, even towards the end if they want it. Not everybody likes seafood, but I think shrimp, I've always liked it.
I love shrimp.
Yeah, shrimp's awesome. I get sick of chicken though. Chicken 5-6 times a day. Even my clients are like, there's got to be something else. I'm like, what do I say? You can blend it up and drink it. That's what I've been doing sometimes. Just get it over with. But yeah, the thing is the foods that the pancakes and things like that.
Yeah.
I actually don't crave those as much now, when maybe it's because I have more body fat, but I don't crave junk food as much.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it's the best time for me to compete, is when I'm mentally ready. Because when I'm craving things all the time, even in my off season, like, oh, I want some pancakes, or I want some, eating out with my friends, family, going out. And I think when I stop craving stuff and I really want to look my best without having a show date in mind, I'll build as much as possible while leaning out and doing cardio, things like that, feeling good about myself. And that's when I'll maybe consider doing a show. Because if you're burnt out and you're just like, can I do a show this year? It's coming up soon. I told myself I was going to do this show a year ago, but then you're just not feeling the drive.
Yeah.
I really think a lot of it is mental. So you got to do it when it's right, and be ready for that, because there's a point in that prep where you're going to be suffering and not going to want to do it anymore. But
amen to that.
Yeah, it takes something different. But I honestly think wrestlers are probably some of the best people, the easiest people that you can have start a prep.
Because that discipline's already it's already hidden in their brain somewhere. They've already kind of learned it, and they've just maybe put it, kind of locked it down a little bit. And then you as a coach, you get to kind of bring that back out of them.
Yeah, they've been there before. They've suffered.
Yeah.
My coach, when I first came to him, when I told him and he found out I was a wrestler, he was like, "Oh, awesome!" He was excited.
He's like, "All right,"
because
I got somebody that can seriously push the limit.
Oh yeah, like because you starve and you're gonna be hungry. Like even my clients towards the end are like, "I'm starving. Can I at least add more of this or more of that?" But the problem is that while your body's trying to burn fat, sometimes your metabolism it works weird to where it'll actually hold on to the food if you have too much, and then it prevents you from burning past that plateau. But there are times to implement refeeds, which will actually boost your metabolism. Like with some of my guys right now.
What's a refeed?
Refeed is like, I'll either, if they want to go out with their wife or girlfriend or whoever, I'll let them go out, depending on how close they are to a show. I like to generally keep it cleaner though when we get closer to a show. I'll do like the foods, the carbs that are clean, that we've kept in the diet, and just up those carbs that day, or fat. And it's funny, they'll actually wake up lighter the next day.
Really?
Yeah. After going out for sushi or burger and fries, sometimes guys will wake up, and if their metabolism's on fire, that's a good indication. If they wake up 2-3 pounds lighter, that they're just, because they'll start sweating immediately as soon as they start eating it, and their metabolism's just burning through everything. So yeah, it's crazy. It's fun to watch though, because then their muscles also fill out too, and it's because they deplete so hard, and the glycogen and everything in the muscle is just gone. And when you get to that point of depleting so hard, and you're still burning all these calories, and you're out of deficit, and then you feed your body, it's almost like your thyroid and everything, metabolism starts revving up, and it just burns that fuel, almost like putting coal into a hot fire. The flames get bigger, and that's pretty much what food is. You just put it right into that coal into the flame, and it just burns up your metabolism even more. So, but it's fun to watch. I love it. I get more enjoyment out of watching like my guys, probably because I'm not the one suffering. So.
But at the same time, dude, you're seeing, just seeing where they were, and I think this would be another thing this would be a challenge as a pro bodybuilder. I mean, I think about if you're listening or watching the podcast right now, how hard it is to see results when you're, let's say you diet for a week, like you just cut out soda and you cut out certain things, like you don't notice that. People, the general public won't notice like what it's doing to their body. But I think if you, you know, 10x that, then you have a fitness or bodybuilder competitor. And if they can't see those results, dude, that has to be a mind screw, man.
Yeah.
But and I think again, like you're saying, having that coach, having you as their coach, and saying, "No, dude, I can see here your quad is starting to come here. You're starting to peak here." Because I mean, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I mean the general public has a hard time seeing results. Imagine if you're already a Lamborghini and you're trying to get better.
Exactly.
Like, how the hell do you see the results from day to day or week to week without having a coach to say, "Dude, that looks good right there"?
Yeah, it gets discouraging.
Yeah.
And to have that will help you not only stay like what's the word, accountable, but
Mm-hmm.
it's good because I'll actually keep a file for each client, and when they check in every weekend with me, it's like, I don't feel like this, I don't feel like that, or I've gained 5 pounds, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, it's just, I promise you're making a difference. So what I'll do is I'll actually show them, and I don't post a lot of my clients, but I'll show them like when we started a month ago or 2 months and then to now, and I'll send them side by side, and they're like, "Oh, geez, I didn't even look back at that. That's crazy." Like,
Oh, dude, that's got to be a huge mental boost.
huge motivation. Some people really get discouraged about the weight thing, and I tell them, I tell them over and over, it's not about the weight, because when you're fueling your body more with food that you didn't have before, but they're still losing inches around the waist, and pants are fitting different, things like that, but their weight's staying the same. That's actually a win in my thoughts, because now you're feeding the muscle, which weighs more than fat,
Mm-hmm.
while you're burning fat. I mean, that's awesome, and I get a lot of reward out of that, to see people succeed like that. And I don't just coach bodybuilders. I help other individuals just for health reasons, and I'll send out a questionnaire asking about like their health problems, if they had any history of anything with injuries too.
Yeah.
And that way I can work around it and be aware of it before we go into like the diet and training. But yeah, it's awesome to watch people change, and how they feel about it too. It almost, I mean, not everybody's going to prep all the time. Clients will take breaks, but that's the thing, is they'll actually learn from the time that they were with me, that they'll almost know what to start doing before they start prep again with me. Like, they'll be like, okay, I need to watch my calories, or I need to start cardio again. I need to get back to this weight, whatever it is that they feel like is the best version of themselves before they can get with me. Sometimes people will do that. But yeah, if you learn a lot about not only yourself, but foods that, like when I was in prep and I was starving, I like foods that I've never liked before now.
Really?
Like asparagus. Yeah, I started liking fish. When I started prepping, I hated fish. But because I got so sick of chicken,
It was like a chocolate bar to you.
I was like, man, I started
This is
learning how to
good.
cook fish different, and then I started getting even pickier, and I really watch for like what kind of food I'm putting in, like making sure it's wild caught with like no preservatives, none of that junk in there, hormones added. It makes a big difference in how you feel and perform too over time.
Really?
Yeah, and when I'm not prepping, I do still like to eat clean when I'm not eating, whatever out with my family or something like that. I like to watch what I'm putting into my body, because that's really a big part of like how you grow and develop, and just how clean your food is. So
Does it bother you, not from like a I'm better than you aspect? So if you're listening or watching, don't think that that's where I'm going with this. But what I'm saying is, like when you're just out and about, like if you and I just went out to lunch right now and you see what certain people are eating and you can gauge, you have a good eye at like their body type and stuff. I mean, obviously you're not competing for a show, but does it kind of drive you crazy a little bit when you see what people are putting in their bodies and you're just like, dude, like if you just, like they're almost self-sabotaging almost.
I think I don't know. That's a good point. I see people, whether it's social media or something else. I want to lose weight. I want to do this, and they'll post their diet every day. But like, there's things that I want to say. Like I want to help them, but sometimes constructive they'll take it as it's just criticism instead of constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
So I would help everybody for free if I could. And
Yeah.
I honestly know that the people that want it, though, will come to me. For instance, when you go up to somebody in the gym because they're doing something wrong and it's just bugging the crap out of you, people will always tell me, like, oh, you know that, like, my workout partner, whoever, multiple times has been like, look at that guy doing that. Oh, yeah, I don't pay attention, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a point in my life, and I think for everyone too, you just want to help somebody do something right if you see them doing something wrong. So
Yeah.
you want to go help them. It's not that you're trying to correct them.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've learned, some people will be thankful, but that's not very often. They'll actually take it as an insult. And you waste your time to go out and try to help somebody, be like, hey, I noticed you were doing this. Do you mind if I make a recommendation
Mm-hmm.
on a different movement for you? Like, are you working shoulders or something like that? And they'll be like, yeah, like some people will be open for that feedback.
Receptive to it.
Yeah, and some people.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of ego when you go to a gym.
There is.
Like ego just is a killer. I think just in life in general, because if you're so egotistic that you're thinking that you're the man in that lane, I can guarantee you 100 times over that you're not the man in the lane. You just haven't met the man.
There's always
somebody going to be better.
There's always somebody better. Yeah.
You know, because they could actually be watching you be the champ. I mean, just think how the evolution of champions and stuff like this goes. I mean, there's always going to be somebody better. And to your point about helping people, I feel like the criticism, because I get that a lot. My personality, and when I decided, hey, I'm going to help people for a living, I've been doing it, but I've been doing it for a ginormous corporation, kind of to benefit their goals. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it to benefit me, and really find a place where I feel like I have a lot of experience and I can help somebody out. And it is challenging because a lot of people, it's not that you're telling them what to do, but they look at it that way.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge, if I could give anybody any advice, would like let the ego go a little bit, because you're not going to learn. You won't grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Just think about the bad choices that we've made in life. A lot of those are ego driven.
Mm-hmm.
Look a certain way, like you go to do something because you think it might be cool and it would impress somebody, it ends up getting you in trouble.
Right. And it's almost like, I don't know how many times my dad would come to me, and I'm sure you've had the same thing when a parent come to you and be like, hey, you know, they see you going down that path and they're like, you know, they give you the heads up that, hey, I'm just warning you from experience, trying to give you a heads up. But me, I don't know if it was my ego or I just didn't care. Like, I would go through life and just get in trouble or do something and find out, oh, okay, I won't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's like, it's the same thing in the gym. I think people have to want to, like, or with dieting, they have to want to do something different. Because I get a lot of people that don't want to change what they're eating, but I'm wondering what they want me to do to help them. Because
sure,
I think it's something they want, like a magic pill. Yeah, go buy this. And it's like,
yeah,
I wish, because I'd be a billionaire if that were the case and there was that pill. I think a lot of it, though, is, you know, you can have the foods that you do every day, but we just need to cut them down and maybe do, like, eventually, like, cut it out this day and now we're putting it in, like, the third day. And I start to slowly cut things and add things back,
mm-hmm.
because then people start to feel better, and when they feel better, they don't want it as much, like the pancakes, the French toast, things like that. But yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to the individual. Like the ego thing you said,
mm-hmm.
I don't want to come across like that, and I'm sure people see me, but when they meet me, they're like, I thought you were going to be totally this jerk or this meathead.
You're just this big meathead. You just think that you're better than everybody.
And I don't see myself as that, and I'm not a guy that throws the weights and grunts. And I get that, and I respect people that lift heavy and throw the weights and grunt. And I think you need that to be that person that you are and the animal that you were going to be in the gym to get that weight up.
Yeah.
Like, I get it because I've been there, but at the same time, you know, you have other people around you too. And you don't want to leave that impression on those people that maybe are just new to the gym and, you know, are trying to get into it and aren't aware of things. So when somebody like that comes up to them, bro, you're doing it wrong, or da-da-da, it's almost like it's an embarrassment for them. Mm-hmm. And when somebody gets embarrassed, they get defensive. And so I don't like to do that with a lot of people, because I think they think I'm just some jabroni who looks like he's a meathead that just wants to go in there and throw weights around. I don't want to do that. I like to go in there and try to be positive with people. But that when I go to the gym, I'm not gonna lie, that's also when I'm not training anyone. That's my time, and I will give everything I can in my time. It's almost like my therapy for the day.
Absolutely.
I need it,
Absolutely.
Hopefully the gyms stay open around here.
I know that I was gonna ask you earlier, like has COVID, I mean it's kind of crazy to think that like you're on the top of your game right now and during a pandemic, man.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, a lot of people, I thanked Garrett Udy. He's the reason that show happened. Him and Tyler Mason, the head judge, and there's a bunch of other people that just put so much forth to actually make it happen. And they moved it to Orlando instead of Pittsburgh because of the restrictions and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So same with the Olympia this year. I have a client who's competing in the amateur Olympia on Wednesday, and he'll be in Orlando as well. It was in Las Vegas. And
it's always in Las Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm. And so every year it's in Las Vegas, but because of everything with the COVID and restrictions, it seems to be Orlando now. So everybody's moving to the shows to Orlando, yeah. But they made it happen, and thank God they did.
Dude, props to them.
Holy cow! And so many people have prepped for shows this year that got canceled, and oh my gosh, I had a client that was on the treadmill when he found out his show was canceled.
No way.
Yeah, he was on the treadmill. He was losing his mind, and he was talking to me, and I was like, "Dude, keep your cool." And he's one of like my clients that I won't say his name, but he just had a hard time like to mentally keep it together. So for that to happen, and then that happened right away, and then he found out too right then that the gyms are closing, and so he started screaming, and I was like, I'll call you back, call me back later when you calm down. But I can only imagine, like I had at least 3 clients that were prepping for shows, and it got canceled maybe within like a week or 2 before.
Wow.
And just to do all that prepping, it's really hard on you, and mentally, like you sacrifice so much, and then to have your show get canceled is really just, it takes so much. Oh yeah.
Imagine hard. I think about somebody like halfway climbing Everest, and they're like 3/4 of the way, and they're like, "Oh, the top's closed. Sorry, gotta go back down."
What? Oh man, yeah.
He's so upset.
It's a really hard. I guess that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's really hard, and I had a guy that had been prepping since last year. When I say prepping, I mean like cutting and trying to keep shredded. And some people can do that year round, and some people can't. And eventually, your metabolism, your body will wreak havoc, and it's going to stop and not work as well. So when you're constantly at a deficit, I feel like you need to have calories, like high calorie days, high carb days, and sometimes just get away from that diet, because if you don't, you're going to hurt yourself, and you won't look as good the next time you do prep for a show.
Yeah. Well, isn't it also important, like for guys that are taking gear and stuff like that, to, like if you're nutrition, I had a friend when I was 18 who, he had an ego. He was, he had some supplements recommended to him. They're not necessarily something you go buy at GNC, and he took them on a whim, and he ended up having a heart attack at like 22.
Oh wow.
And then the guy, and this is what I love about the bodybuilding and the fitness community in general. There's just like, they're so supportive, and he was able to recover from that. But he had some big time people that were like, took him under their wing. It was like, dude, we got to show you how to do, like, your nutrition. And that's where he wasn't. He was just like eating like just a normal person, and putting these other things into his body, and his heart just didn't dig it, like his body. I can't remember what it was. Again, this was probably maybe 15, 16 years ago. But I remember him telling me that story, and because I had met him, so I met him like a year after it happened, and he gave me the rundown on it, and I'm just like, dude, that's pretty gnarly. That's kind of a scary moment, know?
Yeah.
But there's actually, so my point is like with nutrition and eating, I mean, it's because you're putting stuff into your body, and you got to make sure that your body's receptive to that, right? I mean, you can't just eat the pancake diet and expect that you're going to just stay healthy. And
oh yeah, no, I always, whether somebody's taking gear or not, I always ask them the last time they got their blood work done. Blood work is so important. Like, you got to know what's going on with your body. Like, for me, family history of bad cholesterol. Like I have terrible cholesterol in my family, but we're all athletic. My uncle Frank, he runs biathlons and ultra marathons, things like that.
Wow.
He's in his 60s, no, 70 now, but he had a heart attack. And the guy's
He's like super healthy dude.
Yeah, but I don't think he paid attention to what he was eating just because he was burning off everything. He didn't think about like, okay, well, this is probably something I need. I don't know what his diet was like, but I know it probably wasn't the cleanest. And
when you're burning so many calories and you're just probably, you're not getting fat, you know, because you're just training hardcore.
Your heart's pumping, and you're staying in good shape. So
yeah.
But I think it's important too to check on your labs and make sure everything's good, because a lot of people will think it is just the steroids, and it's a big part of it. But you know what? Like, I gotta be honest. Like, maybe 90% of the people that step on stage are taking something, and everybody wants to know like, what's the big secret? What's the big secret? And then it's usually the people that are very like not hateful, but will be the first to criticize and be like, oh, well, that guy's on steroids, that's why. And then those guys will get on something and they won't change anything with their diet. They still go out with their friends and they wonder why they break out and lose their hair and get fat, you know? And it's just like, okay, well, nobody told you to do that. Now they hate it even more. They hate on those people.
Because they're not educated on it.
Exactly. And I never push anything like that. It's usually people that have done it before, and I'll talk to them maybe about, you know, health benefits and maybe stuff that they should change up. But the big thing before I do anything with anyone, I always ask when's the last time they had their labs done. Make sure everything's
makes
okay.
a lot of sense before you start recommending stuff for him,
because like that kid, how old did you say he was? 20?
He was 18 at the time. I think he had a heart attack when he was 19. Like, it was like completely irresponsible. I mean, this is not a story that you hear all the time. This was completely a one-off thing where this dude was just got a hold of some stuff and had nobody there to like, you know, so like, you know, how much do I take? When do I take it? And he was taking it just strictly out of vanity. Like, he just wanted to look good. It wasn't like he's trying to, there's no science behind it whatsoever. So it was ill-advised. Yeah. And that story stuck out to me because I was young at the time too when I heard that story, and then developed a friendship with him, and I was just like, damn, dude, you idiot. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah. It's hard because, I mean, we're all, vanity is a thing, man. Like, we're all vain in our own way where we want to look good and feel good. And
well, especially in a profession like you where you're getting judged on how you look.
And for people that compete too, when they're done competing and they don't look the same like they did on stage because they're not following everything like they did.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. Is that a mental?
It actually is. Like, it's like a disease. And people will get depressed, and you'll hear about people suicide, things like that too. It's really like a lot of people will, not just guys, but because, you know, not being sexist here, but women will really beat themselves up because I think women carry more body fat than men just because maybe they're
naturally
supposed to give birth, you know.
Sure.
So men can tend to keep leaner, but when women look back at their stage shots and how they competed, some of them will get really upset, and I get bummed out sometimes and depressed when I see my stage shots because I'm like, that was only like a month or two ago, and I don't look near like that. But I get it, and that's just part of it. And some people have a harder time, and it sucks because it changes that individual. Not only makes them depressed, but either they'll start blaming somebody else, like their coach or somebody else, that, oh, my coach screwed up my body, or oh, my coach did this. I'm like, your coach didn't tell you to eat all that food after you stepped off stage. If anything, you slowly start introducing foods back in that you weren't having during prep. Or
will it make you feel like garbage?
Oh yeah,
like if you run to Chuckarama after a show.
This reminds me of my like older days when I was in my like 19 to my early 20s, where I just would party hard, and it sounds bad. I didn't continue this lifestyle, but I'd party so hard where I'd be with my friends, I'd puke and rally and just keep going. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like that when I'm done competing, because my body literally will not accept those foods that I want, that I see pictures of, because I'm getting older now too. Like, it'll just sit there and I can feel it. And this is kind of gross, but like, I wouldn't throw it up. I could literally like open my mouth and just
kind of regurgitate
push it out. Yeah, it like really just looked like it didn't digest, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And it takes a while for my body to start being able to break down all that food again, like that I used to be able to. But the only benefit to that was that I got to eat more of the food after I came back up.
Yeah, that's true.
I honestly, like, I crave food so bad, and I know a lot of people do, to where I would be on social media and there would be things of different pages that would pop up with these different desserts or
You're just like,
breakfast.
whoa.
And I was torturing myself. And if you ever like any of those pictures, then more of it pops up on your feed.
Right.
So I'm like, gosh, where is this coming from, you know? And so all this food would always be, you know, in my mind. So I kind of just overdid it. But, you know, and I was fortunate enough, I'm not trying to like brag or anything, that I did not put on a lot of body fat from doing that, because
Well, you've always been fairly lean. Like ever since I've
I think
known you in high school, you've always walked around like you could give me a week of cardio and I'd have a six pack. Like you were always you've always been a chick. You've always.
Yeah, I've definitely had a faster metabolism. I think the hardest part I had was to put on the muscle, because really I had to eat a lot of food, not just a lot of food. Like everybody always says, well, I eat a lot of food, because when they ask me, hey, I want to gain muscle, how do I do it? I'm like, well, you got to eat more. When I say that, they're like, well, I eat a lot, I eat all day. And I'm like, okay, well, what are they eating? I could sit there and go over it with them forever, but I don't. And it's like, there's certain foods that you want to eat and keep it clean still. And for the guys that have a hard time putting on muscle, they're usually lean. Or the guys that have a harder time, the guys that have the easier time to put on the muscle have a harder time getting cut.
That's me.
I was going to say, your body type, you're not fat, but what you do have is you have...
In 2 weeks, like I could go, yeah. Like in fact, I've been on this kind of getting back into working out for probably, I think I'm on 8.5 weeks right now, where I'm like writing down what I'm doing, and I'm just working out from home. And my goal obviously isn't to get big. My goal is to just be lean, and I want to have like endurance, like for hunting and hiking in the mountains and being able to like carry weight for long distances and things like that. But I was completely just not in shape at all. Within 2 weeks of working out, that muscle memory, I mean, I would notice it in the mirror, or my wife would be like, whoa, or you would have like a vein here or a vein there that wasn't there. And I'm thankful for that, but cutting weight
is hard,
man. And I don't get down on myself. I beat myself up saying that it's in my diet, and I don't realize how much it actually is my diet.
Yeah.
Because the working out's easy, and that's the fun part. That's what makes me feel good. But when you have a house full of kids,
it's tough.
And like your pantry, and they have, it's just hard to have meals as a family, as like a dad. And I think a lot of dads probably experience this. It's like sometimes I'll eat separate from my kids. Like I'll have chicken and veggies and some asparagus or whatever, and my kids will. We're obviously trying to get them to eat food, but nice food. But it's a grind. It's a fight for them.
It is.
Yeah.
When I have my kids, I'll cook healthy for them. My youngest boy, he's really good at eating clean. But my older son, he tends to eat what his older brothers eat when I'm not around, and it's always like just junk food. And that's hard for me because I want them to eat clean, but they're young, so I don't want to like be too strict on them. But at the same time, I will, set like, okay, you got to eat this. If you want to have some of this, you have to eat this with it, like eggs with their pancakes. Like, because normally they'll just have like cereal or pancakes with a bunch of sugar, and it's like carbs and sugar. I feel like, you still need that protein in there. And it's funny because like I would prep separate meals for myself and my kids, and during prep, if they didn't finish their food, I'm like, okay, you didn't finish your food, like, I'm full, okay. And I'm like, well, they didn't finish the food, can't throw it away. So,
so like you kind of grind on the food a little bit?
Depending if I was prepping for a show or not, but I would still eat some of their food and like it.
You always got mac and cheese there. I'm just going to have a spoonful of mac and cheese. Let me just taste it.
Chew it up and spit it out.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's...
But like you said, you got to do those things a little bit to stay sane, man. Like, let yourself taste it a little bit, but don't go off the cliff. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's why I think bodybuilding and just people, fitness competitors and stuff, the general public, unless you've done it, it's hard to respect, man. Yeah. Like because so much of it is on the outside looking in, and there's just a very slim amount of people in the world that can get on stage and compete at a bodybuilding show.
Yeah, I think
It's rare.
it's hard because I think a lot of people have a feeling of being embarrassed.
Yeah.
Just because I have a lot of clients that will come to me and their first, some of the things they'll say is, I want to be an IFBB Pro, but they've never done a show and they maybe watched one, I'm not sure, but it's hard for me, like, because I don't think they realize what goes into that to get to that point, but that's good. I want them to keep that drive, like I said earlier. I want them to keep it alive, so I won't say anything like that'll bring it down. I'll just say, good, keep that. There will be people that I've had numerous times that look so good, and they're maybe like a month away from a show. They look amazing, like they would do really well, but they didn't think they looked that great, and they knew that. And I was honest with them too, because that's one thing I'm honest with my clients. And well, I feel like I could be bigger in this area, and I'm like, well, you could, but that's part of the sport. You grow and you develop, but
Yeah.
you still like want to compete. Like I want them to compete so that way they brought their best and they know where to develop and build and go on from there. But that'll prevent them just from knowing that, just step on stage, and then it's a year later again, another year, and then they never step on stage. And then they kind of lose sight in the drive. And that to me is discouraging, because I would love helping people, and I try to stay positive and keep others positive, even if I'm not their coach. I like to compliment people when I see people making results.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you look good. Oh, you're looking great. You know, keeping them upbeat and positive, because that's what the sport needs. There's some people out there that are.
You guys have a lot of critics, man.
Yeah, you do.
The sport of bodybuilding, because for a long time people wouldn't even call it a sport. Like back, like when you think of like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler and Tony Freeman and
Those guys are beasts.
I saw those guys at a bodybuilding.com expo in Boise when I was younger, and I saw them pose down, and they were they were a little ways out from a show, but I mean, they look good. I remember this was before, is it Kai Green?
Yeah, Kai Green.
Kai Green. Before he was who he is now. I remember I went back to use the restroom, and I go in the restroom, and then this dude comes in. He has like a fanny pack on, and he's a kind of a shorter dude. He's just jacked, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't know him at the time because he didn't have the brand name like he does now.
Mm-hmm.
But then I will never forget that, because I'd like go wash my hands, and then he's there kind of looking in the mirror, and he's like kind of trying to get prepped up to go out on stage,
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't competing. You've been to those expos and stuff. They just kind of like show off for everybody, let the fans see what's up. But I remember I came out of the restroom, and I get up to the front of the stage where we were, and Tony Freeman like just bumps into me and gets up on stage and just drops like his joggers and stuff, dude, and just starts posing. And that changed me, man. I was like, this is phenomenal. Yeah. This is insane. I've never seen a human being that big in real life. I've seen him in videos and magazines and all that, but in real life, dude, I was like,
crazy, yeah.
Whoa.
Looks different too in real life.
It's like, insane.
They still, in the magazines, they look great. And they look great in pictures all the time, but even in person, it's crazier. You're just like, holy crap. And it does. It motivates you. It gives you a whole nother level of respect.
Mm-hmm.
But they put in the time too, and they suffered, to get there.
Sounds like preparation, separation.
Yeah, it does. It separates them pretty much. And
something that I believe in big time.
Like you said, there's always critics too. There's always going to be negative people out there hating on you, and a lot of them too. You'll find that, or you thought were like you're really good friends, and they're close to you, and then you hear from somebody else, and I don't believe what other people say, but I found that there are people that I grew up with that I thought were like family, but deep inside they didn't want to see me succeed, and it's hard because you just want the best for everybody at least I do. And
a lot of times people see something and they kind of admire it, but they'll never let you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so they selfishly hate on you because you're doing something that, like the fact that you have a dream and it hasn't, we talked about this before getting on the show, was how everybody wants to be at the front of the line. Like they see the success, and whether it's an actor, celebrity, pro bodybuilder, NFL guy, whatever, they think, oh, that must be easy to kind of get there. And then I think they try it as an interest, and then they realize how hard it is, and then they see someone like you, especially in a small town where we come from, in a small state.
Yeah.
You know, Idaho's not a super dense state with people, and so I feel like the haters are more because there's a lot of folks that just kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you chasing that? I get this from the podcast with people too. I mean, friends and that kind of look at you side-eyed like,
I think this is great, man.
dude, what are you doing? And it's like, what, because I live where I do, I can't do this?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is those people haven't been in your life for a long time. They don't know what's clicking in your mind day in and day out.
Yeah,
they just run into you at the convenience store, at the gym, and they're just like, oh, there he is. You know? Like, you don't know me.
Yeah. Like
you know?
Their opinion doesn't really matter in that case because maybe they have something going on in their life that hinders what you are doing. And you know, a lot of people are afraid of failure.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. I think this is awesome what you're doing, man. Like,
Thanks, man.
I really do. I love it. Like, I think, you know, there's not a lot of this going on around here. And, you know, you see podcasts now and a lot. I actually watch a lot of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that you had your own podcast going.
Yeah, dude, I started the 1st of November. And my goal was to get, I was prepping a little bit before that to line it all out. But it just clicked. For years, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to be. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around, nothing felt like this was where I was supposed to be. I was good at a lot of things, and I was thriving and doing stuff good for, you know, as an insurance agent, things like that. But it wasn't truly what I wanted to be doing. And that caused anxiety, that caused depression. I just lost myself. And it took my soul.
Yeah.
And I realized it was me because of my choices that I made. It wasn't anybody else. It was me putting these mental barriers. I was setting these mental barriers for myself. And I'm like, I gotta stop doing that.
Yeah.
This is something that I want to do. This is something I've been attracted to, and, you know, consulting people and just putting out good messages and just trying to help people accomplish more. And I realized there's a pattern that I did and what millions of people are doing now, where they just say, hey, someday I'll do this, someday I'll do that. I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to name, it's going to be like my little social experiment. I'm going to name it Someday Life because this is my someday life, and then kind of turn that message to where people are like, hashtag someday life. Like, you're out there grinding, pumping weights, you know, hashtag someday life. Like, this is me grinding in what I want to achieve. And I think it came from really talking to thousands of people as an insurance agent. Every year I talk to thousands of people. I've been doing it for 12 years now. And the stories that you hear, like, I'll talk to an older gentleman and he'll tell me about like aspirations and things that he wanted to do, and he never got to do those.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to be
wanna
that.
be that. Yeah.
I don't want to be that. Like, just like you said, when your mind, like right now is the time when your mind, like, you're developing your mind, but you're physically able to, you know, when you're younger in life, you have a little bit lower risk. Maybe if you're somebody that doesn't have children yet, or you don't have a mortgage, you don't have all these house payments and stuff, like, those are the times where you need to get out there and just shoot for the freaking stars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be so focused on finding your passion, but try to, like, any interest that you have, explore the interest, because that you might realize that you love that so much more than you actually do.
Else, yeah.
You know?
Instead of being stuck in something that you're not happy with. Like you said, I mean, you see that too. And I think that I've had so many situations where I've met people and it's the same thing. Like, well, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that, and look back. And that's why I think one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do. And I don't consider bodybuilding a sport because it's just been something that we've done for a long time. Yeah, even in wrestling, like, we lift weights, you know, and that's just part of it. I think the part where it becomes a sport is when you take, it's almost like the meal prepping. that's not a sport to me. Like, I mean, really, I'm just in there training and building, and in the end, it's almost like a beauty pageant. You just cut down and show what you have. All the hard work is put in when you're lifting and you're dieting, and then at the end, it's just showing it off. So for me, because I'm coming from like doing wrestling, football, MMA, those to me were like sports. Those, because you're out there competing against another individual. I guess bodybuilding is too, but I always look at bodybuilding like competing against yourself. So I don't really focus. Even though backstage there's some guys, and I tell my clients the same thing, don't pay attention to
Don't let
everybody
them
else.
get in your head. Like,
Yeah, because it can be a mind game, and you see that, and these guys, like majority that were there in Orlando were African American. They were jacked. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, had this guy make weight for him to be in my class? Like he looks like he's 200 plus pounds, and I'm 165 wet.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no. So I think a lot of it, and I know I've been there before, so I won't get too into somebody else's physique.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's just against yourself, because your own worst enemy. And if you do that too early, like before a show, you can really like if you see somebody on social media, I'm going against this guy. Oh, he looks good. What do you think? And I've been there. Like I think that you just have to focus on yourself and make sure you show up the best person that you can be.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that in everything in life,
Dude, I was just gonna say that's a perfect transition into life and what we need to be doing. And if you're listening or watching this podcast, is just like what Ryan said. If you can almost stay in your lane and just focus on what you have to do, because there's so many distractions out there, and that's what I'm trying to get people to stop doing. Is like, dude, there's already enough challenges in life in general. And I want them to see that successful people have the same challenges.
Yeah.
But it's like, how far are you willing to go for it? I do these little podcast episodes. I don't know if you've seen them, but I call them Someday Sticky Notes. Like I'm a sticky note fanatic, like just writing down little things and just posting it where I can see it. So I do like these little 10 minute segments on my podcast where I just like grab a topic. And anyways, on there I was talking about gambling on yourself. That was the name of it. And how you should take a risk on yourself, but how you can get odds in your favor, how you can better the odds. And when I hear you talking stuff, it's just like with adversity, like bodybuilding, like adversity is going to hit in life and in bodybuilding. And I tell people all the time, like, if you don't love it, you don't have a desire for it, don't do it, because you won't last through the adversity. You'll give up. You got to have some sort of, like, it's not for the faint of heart. Like, you can't just be like, hey, I'm going to do this. Like, you got to have some passion for it. You got to have some desire. And I liken it to bull riding. It's like, bull riding's fun to watch, but there's a reason why you're the one watching.
Right. That's how it was with MMA.
It's like, oh, that's badass, dude. But then you're like, yeah, there's a reason why you're watching. Those dudes are doing it.
Punching each other. And
They
I'm
have
like,
a passion for it because they're getting through the adversity.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, too, was my younger years, like when I went through it, I loved it. I loved the training from wrestling and went into MMA. But it's different when you get in the cage. I mean, yeah, there was one point I remember in one of my fights, like I had gotten head kicked and I was still fighting, but for that split second, it felt like it was 5 minutes and I thought I was watching the fight. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in here, because I was against the cage and I was like, oh, I'm fighting. But in the video, when you watch it again, it didn't look like I got rocked or anything, but I was messed up and I still can't see really well out of the corner of my eye.
Ouch.
And I have nerve damage. So I think a lot of those things when you're younger at that point, I was like, whether you win or lose these fights, you're still coming out hurt. And I thought,
that's brutal.
Maybe I'm done with this. I like watching it.
I'd rather watch it. Like, I don't want to go through the adversity.
These guys they're all beating each other up.
Crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say something I forgot, though.
Well, I wanted to get to, so I'm going to call this Someday Smoke. I'm going to bring out the smoke. So it's just like rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to catch you off guard a little bit. Maybe not.
Okay.
But we'll get ready to end this podcast and wrap it up with these. So top 3 favorite bodybuilders.
Oh, man.
Without putting anybody on blast.
Old era, I would have to probably say, obviously we were talking about Arnold. He's going to be in there.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of anybody when...
I'm thinking of...
like,
I picture you as like with Dexter Jackson. I remember
Dexter,
you getting a picture with him. I'm just like, that dude's freaking...
He'd be in my top 3, I think, as well. But Lee Labrada is actually somebody who I looked at his physique and tried to, like, be like that.
Yeah.
Lee Labrada, he has a son who competes now, but his son's bigger. But Lee was just so symmetrical back in the old early 90s and just was tiny waist, and his posing was just like you could feel like the way he would pose to the music He's so fluent and just looked beautiful. And
he pioneered a lot of stuff, didn't he? I mean,
oh yeah, people still try to mimic Lee Labrada's posing. So I'd say Lee Labrada, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and either Dexter, Ronnie, or there's so many out there. Like, and then there's
because those are the big boys like Jay, Ronnie, and
yeah, and there's even guys that like aren't even pro that I still see sometimes. I'm just like, man, that guy, I really like appreciate a good physique, and you know, I think it's not just genetics, but the hard work I can see people put in to get that conditioning to that point. I mean, it's hard to have a top 3, but yeah, that would probably be my top 3.
That's why I wanted to bring the smoke, man.
Yeah. Let's bring it.
Favorite music to work out to?
Oh, that changes.
Like if you're prepping, are you like listening to something that's...
I usually, if I'm dead, I'll listen to something to keep my mind busy instead of music, sometimes like podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll do stuff like that. But I'd have to say like hip-hop, either from early 2000s and even now, some of it, but I don't like a lot of the new hip-hop.
Yeah, that means we're getting old, bro.
It is, right?
Because my kids are like jamming, like...
Right, and I'm like, what?
They turn on XM in my truck, and I'm just like... I'd be so embarrassed if like one of my boys saw me right now jamming out to this.
Yeah, like, I'm like, they don't sound hard.
Then I put on like Biggie and Pac, and they're like, "What is this?"
Yeah,
like, just let me give you a lesson, kid.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Like you start pulling out the old school music. They don't say anything to my kids yet, but they know they will. So, but I mean, some of the new stuff I like, but then I also like, and a lot of people will be like, "Wow, I don't think there's anyone that likes this much of a variety." The only thing I don't like is country, I guess. Like I don't listen to a lot of country.
Yeah. I
listen to 80s music, like the rock eras from Eddie Van Halen. Sometimes even like Foghat, just different random stuff, and then sometimes even like EDM, like electronica music. Just depends.
Well, you're working out all the time, so I'm assuming that when I wrote this question, I'm like, dude, I guarantee he has a bunch of stuff he listens to.
Oh yeah, like
he can't just jam on hip hop all day.
No,
like he's grinding all the time. Like you got to throw in some other stuff there.
There's definitely like different music.
I love every genre.
Yeah,
like every genre, dude. I just love something about it. I mean, I'm a honky at heart, so I love country, but I won't listen to country when I'm working out.
When you're working out, yeah.
It's either like I'm more like 3 Days Grace, Breaking Benjamin,
right.
Rage Against the Machine, dude.
Rage
it's like
is
my
awesome, yeah.
Like I'll get it cranking down here in the basement, working out, and my wife's upstairs, and she'll be like looking over the stairs.
Are you done yet?
What are you listening to?
She's not a Rage fan.
I think she is. I mean, she owns a dance studio, and she's
nice.
she loves music, but
probably not.
When I'm down here getting it, dude, like just trying to remind myself that
I
was cool at one day. Back in the day, I was cool.
That's awesome. No, you were, dude. You were freaking huge back in the day too. I remember like back in wrestling.
Dude, I loved. I tell my kids this all the time. Like you're gonna get to a point as a man where you're going to start lifting weights and stuff, and you're gonna start seeing some capabilities in yourself, and that's gonna build a lot of confidence. For me, when I was younger, I was never taught like a nutrition or anything like that. I was always kind of sloppy. I was just a sloppy young kid, and I got made fun of all the time for it.
Really?
And it was embarrassing as hell. I hated it. I just had low self-confidence, just a big gut, and it's like, ugh. And then when I turned like 15 and I started getting into football and we had to like get into the weight room, like I just started coming into my own. I realized like I was like country strong. I'd been working on a farm my whole life.
Oh, okay.
You know, and so I could push weight around. And I thought it instantly set me apart, and it gave me that confident boost that I needed because I was hating on myself for so long. And then the weight started coming off. You kind of like get more into puberty and stuff, you know, and
see those changes, man.
See those changes, and then it all changed. And then, you know, women started being, or girls at that point started being attracted to me and stuff, and I was like, whoa. And then my ego definitely got kicked up being young and in high school, and then I just fell in love with weight training. So since I was probably 14, 15, I just fell in love with weight training when I saw the confidence it gave me, and I've always stayed with it ever since.
Yeah, and that's something I hope to show my boys, and I know one day because I know they like to mess around. They don't really lift though. They're like, Dad, look how many push-ups I can do. Yeah. And it's like they're still doing the wave a little bit and the form's off, but I'm just like, hey, at least they're doing it, They're so young. I remember, yeah, when I started lifting weights in junior high, it was at lunchtime. Well, before, when I was younger, like 8, I think I tried lifting weights in my basement. My dad had his weights set up.
Yeah.
I actually got 2 hernias doing that. Yeah, I've had a total.
I've had a hernia surgery.
Oh yeah, they're not fun. I mean, but luckily I was younger, so they just put the mesh there and I'm good to go. But,
damn, dude, I hated that. I had that done back in 2000. Was it 14?
oh geez, so you were older when it happened.
Yeah, dude.
I heard it's more miserable.
2015. It sucked,
Yeah.
dude.
You can't straighten your leg out.
Dude, I couldn't like do anything, and this is where I'm at now. Is I've had to. It's been a while to get my core strength back because if you're complaining about lower back pain, a lot of it, I'm going to tell you right now from my experience, is because you have a gut.
Yeah.
Like you have such a weak core.
It's true.
And if you're complaining about lower back pain, that's my belief on it. I'm
Yeah.
not a doctor, guys, but I could just tell you when I tighten my core up and I start working out my core. See, I went gun ho after my hernia, and dude, it put me out. And that's my mistake. It's like I did legs. I thrashed my legs last Monday, dude, and I didn't work out until Friday because I couldn't walk.
Sore, yeah.
I was so sore, like going up and down the stairs and just like. And I don't recommend that, but I hate when I do that, when I go so hard, and I need to remember to keep myself in check. Like, okay, you can give more, but you actually, like, less is more a little bit, because then you don't train for 2, 3, 4 days, and then you just missed out on that training because you're sore somewhere.
Yeah, I guess it's for the type of training you want to do for being in shape and carrying.
I just want to be just like healthy. Like this,
Yeah.
I saw this quote a few years ago, and it always plays in my mind. It's basically like, if you don't force yourself to take care of your wellness, you'll be forced to take care of your illness. And I see that all the time with people, like selling life insurance and things that I've done in the past. I see people where they're calling me and they're like, they need life insurance because they feel like,
it's coming.
Here I am, I'm 50, I've neglected my body all these years, and they can feel it coming, you know? And I'm like, I don't want to be that. And you see so many people like that won't, they just, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's like this old school thing, but you think you're all fine, and then the doctor gives you some bad news.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you need to quit smoking. You have cancer. Those people stop smoking. You know, they start like, they stop, or it's like, yeah, but you're forced to take care of your
you gotta address
illness that you have, and it's like, no, look at it the other way. Like, take care of the wellness now.
I've always thought that too, because you look at Ronnie Coleman. We were talking about him.
Yeah.
Have you seen him now?
Oh yeah, he can barely walk.
So sad.
His back is just beat up.
Yeah, and they asked
that
him,
dude's like,
if you had to do it ever, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it? If you had to be in this state, would you trade that? Would you trade those Olympia titles? And he said he wouldn't change anything.
He wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be like, man, I don't know, because looking at that, it looks miserable. But I mean, you take the risk and the reward, but I don't think there's any risk and reward in smoking. But going back to the core, though, the core, it has a lot to do with your lower back. If you have a weaker core, and some people don't want to hear that, but like, it's true. Like, building your core muscles just helps so much, not only with your strength and endurance, but your lower back mainly. My lower back constantly has problems, but that's because my hips are off. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's just from.
It's just an important part. I wanted to point out that for me, after hernia surgery, I had to rebuild that all up, and it took me a long time to do it.
Yeah, because you're immobilized for so.
Oh yeah, and the mesh, and it's like you got to kind of
weird.
Tear that muscle up a little bit again, and it's just
Even to this day, if something bumps into me like right in that area.
Yeah, me too.
And this was like early 2000s, or maybe even in the late 90s. I had this surgery done, and it still to this day just feels weird if something bumps me there. It almost feels numb, but it's like, ugh, gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Well, hey man, we'll get out of here. My
laptop
this laptop. I gotta get a new one. It's like battery's going dead. But anyways, if you guys are watching or listening to this, you can follow Ryan at Ryan_Tony_IFBB on Instagram. Yeah. Where else can they get a hold of you? And like, if somebody's listening to this and they want to kind of get some coaching from you and just explore that a little bit with you.
Yeah, so I have a team page as well. I don't really promote it, but I should start to. If you look in my link in my profile and my description, you can get to Team Show Ready through there.
Okay.
And you can message me. I don't check them every day, but sometimes every other
Sure.
day. And then we can come in contact that way if anyone's ever interested in losing weight, building muscle, or just becoming healthier.
Awesome. Now's the time to do it, man.
Oh yeah, it's the cold time.
Take this step, and you need a coach, like Ryan said. I mean, I'm a huge advocate in this. If you haven't, you need to kind of put your money out there, and this is part of gambling on yourself. Is if you feel like you have what it takes, spend the money, invest in yourself, because it's like this famous quote where if you think it's expensive, try hiring an amateur. Like if you think it's expensive hiring a professional, like fix your house, just get a handyman that doesn't know what he's doing. You pay for it 4 times over again.
Yep.
So if you're gonna pay for it, go to the best, get the science behind it. The experience is the biggest thing, and save yourself years and years of torment.
It's true. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Okay.
Appreciate you.